How close is that to my mouth? That's really close. Okay. Have a bit of a snack while we're doing that, because I love to snack. Okay, our idea. Oh, I need to do an intro now. Let's do the stringing of the line. G'day, my name is Sebastian. Oh, well, I won't do all of that. We're day 455 on the swing. We're about to work out the level here, and I'll try to explain it as I go along. I've just kind of got to get it level. It's a very difficult thing. Nearly a problem my brain can't solve. That's what I was trying to get. String line. Welcome. Oh, check my eye. I got something in my eye. I think I've got. Oh, it's a cat hair. I had a cat hair in my eye. That can't be good. How are we doing? We're good. We're good. Yeah, we're good. Okay. Feels like I should have done something else. Welcome to another episode of Rin Furniture. I'm standing in the wrong place. I should be standing right at the corner of this desk so I can get myself in the... I won't complete that. I'm just having a cup of coffee while I do this. Well, it's not refreshing. It's more like punch in the face. Oops, sorry. Right, well, where are we? We are working on, what are we working on this week? And with that wonderful start, welcome to the next installment of the front yard swing. We are going to take a look at where we put the pads this week, do a bit of concreting, and, well, we'll see what happens if I did it right. First thing is, what is the first thing? Now we need the star of the show. I don't have a camera to look to, so we will just put this in the centre. Of course, I can't hear this. I'm going bum, 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 bum. For editing, I'll try and put some little markers in here so I know where each little bit of voice goes. Because I do have the trouble of when I'm putting this together, I was just like, what? Why did I say that? Okay, just, oh yeah, you can see down there, I've put in a string line. The purpose of that string line is so I know where this edge of the swing is in relation to these boxes. So I'll zoom out so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. And I need to be facing here. I am putting in some string lines, and string lines are really there as reference. So once you set them, you know that has all been measured and it's in the right place, and that's your reference point. You know where to go from it. Does it go left, right, up, down, all of that kind of stuff. They're relatively important, string lines. I have a string line running from the other side of the post all the way to the other side of this post, and then using the edges, the front edges of the swing. That's my face side, my datum side, I guess. There is a little trick that you use to wind on string lines, which I can never remember. So I tend to just screw a screw, wrap it around hundreds of times, and then pull it. But then it's really difficult to get off. And then I'm running a string from one, so then that string goes back around to the far side of the box, the far box, and it's running a line all the way across to here. And I've made 3 marks center, and that should line up with the center of that, but because I don't have a string line there, I've got the edge of the post. Sorry, I'm just having a cup of coffee, but I'm also watching, and I'm also trying to follow along with what I did, which is now the edge of the third mark on the box. And there's another third mark on the box here. And then if I look down that line, I see it lines up with that mark and lines up with the mark all the way down to the other side, and it's straight with the other box. It's a little off, but it's where it needs to be. It doesn't have to be dead accurate. I'm trying to explain what I'm doing here, and I don't actually think I'm doing a particularly good job. I remember when I edited this, I couldn't understand what I was talking about. I was like going, oh, well, that doesn't make any sense. I can twist the box a little bit, but to be perfectly honest, I'm actually quite fine with that. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I really couldn't figure out a way to get these string lines in the right place and get everything square. When you're in the moment trying to set it up, it sounds so possible. It sounds so easy. And I watch YouTube videos where they, set up a line and then they go, okay, so whatever happens, that's where we take our measurements from. But what you don't realize is that there's actually that level that they're choosing, the height and the angle and all of that sort of stuff. How do they work that out? Like, I just would put a square up to the string line because I couldn't think of any other way to figure out whether it was 90 degrees. This is my attempt to try and explain what I was doing, and this is actually more for myself because I really struggle with doing this kind of stuff. What I needed to find out was where to put the pads. So you can see here, these are just representations of the two poles that I'd set up. Of course, there is a cross member here, which we showed last week. Now, what I thought I should do was run a string line across the front of the two and then run one 90 degrees to that, that's the red line, and then another one 90 degrees to that. So it meant that I would know the distance between this face here and then where the pad would go, and I'd know the line that it would need to run in. So I could say, cool, this line continues on here, and so I can put the pad in here, which I would have put there, let's just say. Well, the problem with that is that I never could figure out how to get this at 90 degrees. I'd actually be putting a square in there. I think there's some footage of me trying to put a square in there to try and work out how to make this 90 degrees. Now you're probably thinking, hold on, how do you get that in line? You've got to know that it's 90 degrees. Yeah, well, I worked all that out as well. I'm smart in that way. Yeah, I'm super smart. That one's actually pretty okay, surprisingly enough. So I know that that is square, and I know that, so that means that that is square. The only way I could really do it was using that square. What I should have done is I should have measured a point between anywhere on the green line here to another point anywhere on the blue line on an angle, and basically measured the distance of that, put all of these three values, all of these three lengths, I should say, into a trigonometry calculator, and then I could work out if these angles add up to 90 degrees. because if they add up to 90 degrees, that means this is 90 degrees. This angle, the blue and the green string lines are 90 degrees. I actually didn't do that. Now, I put all of this together in the video, so we will continue watching the video. The next thing I've got to do is get the depth right. With the depth, I'm going to stick this here in the probably on the edge of this, or on the center, maybe the center, and then put the bracket on this side, attach the bracket to this, set it in the level, figure out where that level's got to be, and then work out where that's got to go. And that means that all of the brackets will be in the same place. But I've got to get this concrete in today. So I'm fine-tuning the location with the string lines, and you can see the string lines going around the front. There is one going on both sides. Fine-tuning these was quite difficult because as soon as you move that string line, you don't have a reference. You've moved your reference. Again, I've watched people do this on YouTube, and they just do it. I just don't quite understand how. Someone's about to take off. Somebody's about to fly. They're coming back from Sydney. You know who you are. I'm actually trying to get the locations just that much more precise, because the more precise I get it, the less finagling I'm going to have to do when I put the the diagonal pieces up. And it's lunchtime, so I'm about to have lunch. If you think I did anything odd in this video that you probably would have done different, I'd love to hear from you. Just post something down in the comments and I'll get back to you. Thanks. Don't quite know what I was doing there, but we'll find out. Now I've moved on to getting the horizontal pieces over the pad, and this is where the brackets are going to be attached to, so they're sitting in the concrete and they stay in position while they set. Because I'm trying to get this location bang on, it means that I don't want them to move around, and a lot of people would probably put all of the concrete in there and then set it in place. Now, because I haven't done it before, I thought the best option would be to make sure that it's not going to move, because if it drifts off, I don't have any way of correcting it. I'd have to chip it out or cut it off, and at that point I didn't have an angle grinder, so I would have had to cut it off and then put like Dynabolts in there, concrete bolts, which I don't think probably would have held up to the stresses of being pulled back out, because that's really the problem here. Now I'm setting the level, and I need a single value of where the bracket should be. They should all exist on the same plane. And even though I've put the depth of all of the boxes to the same, that doesn't necessarily mean that the pieces that I've put across them are going to be in exactly the same place. So what I had to do was measure on the tape measure the distance between where I saw the green line of the laser and a set amount, which was I think the deepest amount, and then I marked it on the wood, so I knew that that was the same reference point on all of the 4 pads. And then when I screwed the brackets in, I knew that I think I had to have like the second hole had to be on that reference mark. And so some of them, the reference marks was way up that piece of wood, and some of them were actually below it. And when they were below it, I had to attach another piece, which is actually what I'm doing here. I'm attaching another small block, and you can see here I've attached another small block to get it in the right place. This is a lot of work, or a lot of working out to try and get this accurate. And you're probably thinking, am I going too far? Well, in the end, now that because I have actually finished it, it's actually sitting outside, now that I've finished it, I think I probably didn't do it well enough, to be perfectly honest. You can't tell because when you go and look at it, you don't know that it's anywhere out of whack, and it's not in any way, shape or form out of whack to a great degree. When there's motion on the swing, those 4 pads are actually what take most of the sideways weight. And if they're just a little bit out, that means one's gonna, push down more than the other. Or sorry, the one that's closest is going to push down more than the one that's further away. And it's kind of like a little bit of wear. We've got horizontal support. There's this beneath it. That's going to go in there. Basically, this will come up to where the concrete is. And it just means that, I can go halfway, something like that. Now this is a bit higher, which basically means I kind of needed this to be half, but we'll just set that as the top level. It was just me not really paying attention. And this bracket should be, if all goes well, right smack bang in the middle of the upright there. You can see in this one I've got the bracket sitting on the side. I think that one there is the one that's the lowest. That means that the bracket is here. And of course the bracket on the far side is over here. This one's lower in the ground than this one. This one's actually standing out of the ground. And it did make it quite hard to get the levels right, because I obviously had to, in this one here, cover it with more concrete, whereas this one didn't require as much. So I take all of the string lines off, and that means that I'm about to do the concreting. Now, I made a couple of mistakes here. Now, I do have to apologize for the sound. When I was recording, I didn't realize that there was something wrong with the mic, and of course I was so focused on what I was doing that I didn't stop to check. That was problem one. A second problem is that I actually started putting this concrete in without a mask, and that's a real no-no. I don't quite know why I wasn't wearing a mask. As soon as you try to tip the concrete out of the bag, the dust goes everywhere. And at that point, I probably should have just gone, okay, let's just go and quickly get a mask. This was fastcrete, so it sets quite quickly, but it still took a good day to go completely solid. And I think I definitely would have had an extra 2 minutes in the whole procedure to walk in here, grab my mask and go back out. I do actually get a mask, but I didn't actually use my other mask because I needed to change the filters. If you enjoyed this video, because to be honest, I enjoyed making it, give the video a bit of a thumbs up. And while you're doing that, you could probably hit the old subscribe button. Subscribe for more dancing, maybe. Oh, I think the other thing that I probably should have done is wear knee pads, because I was quite hesitant to get my knees down, and my knees got really wet because I did actually have to get down on my knees. But because I was hesitant, I actually ended up getting a bit of a sore back the day after. I should have worn knee pads, which would have meant that I wasn't so hesitant about getting on my knees, which I ended up having to do anyway. Long story short, I avoided using my knees, and then in the end I kind of had to anyway. The gumboots that I'm wearing, they are are they my new ones? Problem, they look like my new ones. Yeah. My previous, sorry, I was just trying to look at the gumboots. My previous gumboots had a hole in them because I actually stood on a nail years and years ago. And when I stood on that nail, it actually went through my foot, and I thought, oh God, have I had a tetanus injection? Well, thankfully I survived. Fast forward to when I started working on this project, I kept on standing in the mud. And if you remember me, I was water blasting some of the area. And when I finished, I was actually wearing my work boots, but I switched over to my gum boots because I thought, oh, I don't want to get my boots ruined. Started wearing the gum boots, and then I'd take my foot out, and one foot was completely drenched and the other one was completely dry. And I completely forgot about that hole. So I went out and bought some new gum boots because there was no point in my feet getting wet. And when I started using these ones, here they are here, the very rim here just ended up getting right into my shins. So much that it was bleeding at one point. And I had a pair of pants on. So this day was particularly bad. This was the worst one that I had. And after this I had, like abrasions on my shins. So I ended up having to put tape on it, which is why these are red. And you'll see them in future videos. If you're ever wondering why, it's taped to protect my shins. I attempted to do the same thing that I did on those posts and try and put the bags next to the locking. This was a little bit trickier to do because it was less deep and flatter, plus I had the bracket thing in the middle. So I would do like half a bag for each swing, and then I had to try and get the drill in and around, and it took a lot longer for the size they were. I think I used 2 bags for each. And that drill piece, which is somewhere over here, I found it the other day, actually worked out really well. It was quite a good tool. It's actually for mixing paint. And you can see the bracket just moved there. I did keep on knocking them, but it was okay to swing in that direction. It was this direction that I didn't want it to move in, because the pole is going to be cut down the bottom with a little slot, and then that bracket's going to go in that slot. And if it moves this way or that, then the pole itself is actually going to be, varying in this direction. Whereas if it's moving in this direction, the hole's in the right place. And that was the thing that I was really after. I got it to a bit of an art. I'd actually flood it with a lot more water than I probably should have. And I was worried that it was going to rain, but to be perfectly honest, it wouldn't have made any difference. Wetter concrete isn't probably as strong, but I just had to mix it somehow. I've been watching this YouTube channel called Woodbrew, and it's a guy and a girl, I think Dylan and Molly. They are in some part of maybe Arkansas or somewhere in Kansas, I think. And when they set their posts, they do it completely differently than I'm doing here. What they do is that they fill the post with about 1/3 of it as water. They fill it with water, and then they dump the entire bag all the way to the top, to the very top. And then they make their little sort of bridgy part, and then they spray it wet, and it's a little wet on the top, and then they leave it. And what happens is, because it rains so much and it's so hot there, what it does is it draws all the moisture from the surrounding soil, and the concrete sets. Now, I don't know whether I could do that here, but I didn't. I didn't even want to attempt it. And I didn't know about it at that time. I was simply just doing it, as you can see, split open a bag, spray some water in there, and yeah, get it going. Okay. Look. The last one. We're going to put last 2 bags in here. I might actually have to take out a few of these. Some of these have set on a funny angle. I don't think the angle matters. No, I don't think the angle matters. Like some of them have moved this way or that way. Can you see? Yeah, you can see. But I don't think that matters. So long as they are horizontally in the right place and centered. I didn't actually measure precisely where they were, but that I don't think that matters. Doesn't matter what I do, I'm going to have to cut and trim to fit. So we'll do these last two bags, and then we're done for today. It was quite a bit of satisfaction to know that I was actually at the end. This part, putting this concrete in, this was the one part that I was most worried about. Setting the poles was just I was worried, but it's just a matter of process. Whereas these ones, it was the formwork, it was getting the brackets in the right place, and there were 4 of them, and they all had to be in the same place and the same thing and all that kind of stuff. So this was the one that I was most worried about, and I didn't actually rush it. The first one I took my time, second one I got a little bit quicker, but by the time I got to the last one, as you can see there, the bracket's quite a distance out. By the time I got to that last one, I was actually going fairly good. I was making sure it was mixed properly because I had the time. And I said something there. I think I'm at the end. Last final act is to try and get this bottom piece out without moving this. Now, I've done it to 2 of them. The last one I don't need to do it because there's nothing in the cement that's wood. But this one actually has it in there, and it's quite deep. So I'm going to try and take it out and pull it out somehow. It might not work. It probably won't work. Well, yeah, that's not going to work. This one's very wet. A little too wet, I think. Put that in my pocket so I don't lose it. Yeah, that's very wet in there. It might be wet, but it's actually okay, I think. I don't think it's a big problem. Now, this is kind of the first time I've done concrete pads before. I found that concrete works quite a little bit like when you're on the beach and you stand on slightly wet sand, and how it looks like all the water gets pushed out, and that's places where you're standing is dry, and as you take your foot off, the water kind of rushes back in. Well, trying to surface concrete is the same sort of thing. Sometimes it looks dry, but if you tap it a little bit, it sort of pushes the water out and then the water rushes back in again. So you can actually, for quite a long time afterwards, just pat it a fair amount, and then things will be good. Well, I quickly went out and changed my shirt. This is about where we end this week's episode. Come back next week because we've got some diagonals to put up. What are they, like turtles? Turtles? How they fight? I feel as strong as I did in those videos than I do normally. I definitely do hope that you enjoyed this week's video. Like and subscribe. Check out my Instagram, post every now and then. We will catch you next week. Have a fun week.